Business over drinks. Business over drinks. This is Dave and Terng. This is business over drinks.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Business for Drinks. My name is Terng and I'm calling in from Singapore.
Hello. My name is David. I'm calling in from Australia. How's everyone doing? Don't forget to like us everywhere. We're pretty much everywhere right now. So like us, comment, send us money, do whatever you can to support our show.
I
Anyway, we
always
have
I always love the look of the guest face every time Dave does his introduction because we don't give anyone warning what he's going to do.
the look of
always
disgust.
the best thing. And there's regret, just instant regret. Like, why am I here? I love it.
Pure anger and shame, which is a look I'm used to. Anyway, we have a fantastic guest tonight, and we're really appreciative that she came out of her way to spend time with us. And her name is Ling Yah. So she's a lawyer, podcaster, newsletter writer, and YouTuber. She has over 8 years of experience as a lawyer, and has also become a successful content creator with her podcast. This is My Why podcast, ranking number 2 in Malaysia and Singapore for business and careers on Apple Podcasts. And now she has over 33,000 downloads, over 35 countries, and has reached over 13,000 followers. And her content continues to grow and inspire. In addition to running multiple online platforms, Ling Yah is also on a mission to hack the LinkedIn algorithm and break out of the traditional box of being a lawyer. Ling Yah enjoys meeting new people, reverse engineering their successes, and sharing her learnings with her online audience. Despite not having it all figured out, Ling Yah has had some serendipitous moments in her career. She hiked to Everest Base Camp in March 2020, only to be stuck in the Himalayas during the world's lockdown. She also landed her podcast on the Late Late Show with James Corden, which is an awesome accomplishment, multiple times, and even attended the show's final London taping. Can't wait to ask about that. Ling Yah's Monday Reflection LinkedIn post. You may have seen it if you live in Singapore, especially in Malaysia. There's a high chance you'd have seen this post. It has reached an impressive 617,000 impressions, and she was even offered a book deal with a prestigious publishing house. Ling Yah continues to push boundaries and inspire others through her online content and personal experiences. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love the intro, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
It goes downhill from here. So we like to start on a high. Dave, why don't you kickstart the questions, man? Because I've got a lot to follow up on the intro.
Yeah.
Kind of like touched on a lot of points I really want to talk about.
But first, before we begin, let's talk about our drinks. I'm going to start. Jack Daniels have been kind enough to send us some fantastic ready-made liqueur. So we have Tennessee apple liqueur, and it's got that traditional Jack Daniels taste. I talked about it in our last episode, so check that out too, with a bit of apple to it. So if you're a big Jack Daniels fan, try it out. Easy to drink.
And Jack Daniels did not send me anything because I'm not in Australia, so I'm drinking a Peroni beer. Because Dave said, and I quote, "This is part of a brand, man. You got to drink. Stop being a pansy." So I'm drinking now.
He wants to drink water. What kind of person is that?
Linga, what about yourself? I hope you're drinking water so badly because I want to follow that up. Linga, what are you drinking right now?
Unfortunately, I'm drinking tea, but I have my own little cup. So the tea is something that I like because I don't really drink, and it's just something to end the night with, I think.
Sorry, is that really cup branded with your podcast brand?
It is. Yeah, my friend made it for me last Christmas, and I really liked it. So I try to use it whenever I have an interview.
So we need better friends.
Yeah, I know. And I've got a shirt, and my friend made this for my birthday, so it was really nice.
Oh man, our friends suck. No one's made us any branded gear. Yeah, all the friends know what we're doing.
Yeah,
I mostly get insults from my friends. Like, you sound stupid.
Oh no, yeah. I even got a friend who gave me this. Like, if you see this little art piece, she gave it to me, and I have a stencil as well with a little girl, which I haven't used out to do street art. But yeah, I've got my own branded little stuff as gifts.
Okay, really now nice. I feel like you're bragging slightly. And
I'm going to tell my wife. My own wife
two people who are down.
She hasn't done anything like this for me. I'm going to tell her. I'm going to do a passive aggressive little rant. Like, oh, I guess what I guessed it. I did. Her friend, just friend and wife, gave her all these customized gifts.
Yeah, and I never asked for it.
No, Dave, you
mean,
just got to
that
ask
is
for it,
awesome.
man.
Need a subscription.
Okay, before we
Anyway,
get
that's
too
awesome.
sad, I think I'm going to jump straight into the questions because there's something actually very interesting that I wanted to touch on because, as Dave mentioned in the intro, right, you're trying to hack the LinkedIn algorithm to kind of grow, grow your following and then help promote the podcast.
Sure.
I think that's fascinating because I've not been focusing too much on LinkedIn, partly because I think I just keep on forgetting, but also because um, I know, sorry, I've been focusing a little bit more, so it's been really helpful, right? Um, what have you learned? Any tips that you can share with us, like our listeners, myself specifically, right? How did you actually reach, 617,000 impressions?
I reached that without even intending to reach 617,000. This happened the second week when I decided I would take LinkedIn seriously and write every single day. So it was only the start of the second week. And I remember when I was sort of scrolling through LinkedIn and I thought, let's see what others have done and what's worked for them. And I noticed some people would say, hey, I went out and I met this person for this weekend. This is what we talked about. So I thought that's an easy win. And I was meeting an upcoming guest. And I thought, hey, I don't actually know if people will like his story because he doesn't have any social media presence. He does have an interesting story though, and he's around 70, 80 years old. So why don't I try? This is my way of creating content, but also sort of testing to see the results and whether people were interested. So I kind of just posted on a Monday, didn't think about it, and just kind of went viral from there. I mean, I suppose it really resonated. And my opening line, I'm told by people, really struck a chord because I said Malaysia is a mediocre country, and apparently everyone just went, "Whoa, what do you mean by that? I need to read the rest of it." So that's kind of how it starts in terms of virality.
That's actually how I think I've started following you then because I saw
Oh,
that post. It kind of showed up everywhere. So I follow. I think I connected with you. I followed you at that point, and then I kind of shared your profile with Dave, basically right around that point, and said like we should
Mm.
probably reach out to Ling Yah around
oh
at that time.
wow!
It
Yeah.
took him. I think it took him about a month to actually send you an email, but
It doesn't matter anyway.
yeah,
We're here.
we take time. But yeah, that's how I first discovered your profile and your content. I thought was really fascinating. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much, and that's actually really interesting that you didn't even plan it, which I think
No,
is how the best content's made.
not at
And
all. I mean,
I'll,
I really thought no one would be interested in it. I just thought you might get 5 likes, 10 likes. That's it. Who knew?
Oh, I wish I
that's
could get
interesting.
10
There's
likes.
no. It's crazy, but I think there is also a nuance to the way you wrote, as you said, the intro. So anyone who doesn't follow Ling Yah, so search Lingyah, but we'll also obviously link to her in our show notes. Check her out and look for a post called titled "Malaysia is a mediocre country and doomed to mediocrity." So there's obviously a nuance to the way you wrote it. There is like most of your posts are written with a very unique style. For example, you don't go into long paragraphs. You go into usually short sentences with a bit of drama involved with them. Can you tell us more about your strategy behind the way you write your posts?
I write the way I would like to read it, and I'm actually very much a schemer. So I consume a lot of content, but I always skim. So if I see big chunks of paragraphs, I just skim. I might read one line here, one line there. And for me, I want people to read everything I've written. So how do I do that? I make it very easy to skim through. Sometimes I try and use emojis. It's just a way of thinking if someone had only 2 seconds to read my post, I have to grab their attention in that 2 seconds. What can I do? Make it quick, make it simple, make it easy to skim with lots of spaces and different colors as well. So it's kind of like that. And just the idea of your first few sentences are really important, especially this lines that you see before you click read more. So those are the things I try and focus on. But otherwise, it's really just crafting a story. That's my thought always. What's an interesting story that might get people's attention?
Oh, that's fascinating. We're definitely going to clip that one because I thought that's really good insight into. It's similar to how people get TikTok views as well, but they do it from the visual medium. So it's
Mhm.
basically how do they capture your attention in your first second and a half, I think.
Yeah.
And it's from shouting something out, or they do a snippet up front before they do the actual start of the video. So
It's
I
Yeah.
kind
think
of like
that's really
clickbait, right?
fascinating.
It's a
A
bit
little
like
bit.
yeah, sometimes the opening hook can be a bit dramatic. So that when I interviewed that person, for instance, Malaysia's mediocre country, when he said that, my mind just went, "Ooh, that's the perfect thing." But the second half of that sentence, I came up with it by deducing from what he was saying. And if you were to ask him, he'd probably say that's a bit too dramatic and not really exactly what I said, but the essence is there as well. And so that was the opening line I chose.
Dave, say something
Yeah.
really dramatic, and we'll just use that as the as the intro bit for this. Dave's just gonna say something crazy. Okay, so I made an assumption that LinkedIn was really helpful, but could you just confirm that LinkedIn has been really helpful in helping you grow listenership on the podcast? And kind of, can you give us a sense of how much it has helped?
It's really, really, really helped. I would say it's helped just because in the numbers as well, it's really jumped. It's helped just in terms of the people that are reaching out as well. And you can just see it grow. It's helped because I also do physical meetups as well. And they all came from LinkedIn pretty much, 90%, I would say. And they started because I had a feeling I've been doing this for 2.5 years. And lots of people have been saying, let's do a physical meetup. And I always push it back because I thought, I'm one person, it's already hard enough doing a job, then I was having to do this podcast by myself, and also doing LinkedIn every single day. But then I finally thought, let's just give it a go. So I just wrote a post online. I just said, do you want to meet new and interesting people? And that post also kind of went viral. I think it had 15,000 impressions. And that really shocks me because lots of people were interested and they all came from LinkedIn. And you can just really see that kind of community just flourishing on that platform.
Could you tell us when the meetup is? Sorry, Dave. Could you tell us when the meetup is, Ling Yah?
So the second one is on the 17th of December. And that's when it's happening. Yeah. So the first was like 2 months ago, I would say.
And then how can people attend these meetups?
So I actually did write a LinkedIn post saying, if you're interested, DM me. And we have a special Telegram group. And I don't publicize that link because I want to kind of control and try to prevent spams from coming in. But it's really easy. I mean, if you're interested, just DM me. I look at you. I can tell that you're not a spam profile. I'll just let you in. It's not a big deal.
So that is why you rejected me. Okay. So,
but you didn't reach out.
Yeah, just kidding. Actually applied to me.
No, so Dave's a human representation, a human, human version of a spam profile.
You have a podcast over that.
But anyone listening or watching can definitely analyze, what Ling Yah just said. So the way she described her meetup was, do you want to meet new and interesting people? It's not like, I am hosting a meetup, do you want to attend? She kind of, the way she worded it is very clever. Where did you learn to write like that? Because I think there's a lot of genius behind it. And it's like you're writing as a marketer, you've worded in a way that's persuasive and kind of entices people to react to you.
Yeah, I feel really flattered that you said that because it's kind of just me writing whatever comes to my mind. There wasn't a specific marketer's hat. I suppose for me, I also do remember seeing copywriters writing. They always say, these are the things that you always have to do. And they always say, think from their perspective, make sure it's it's sort of solving their pain points. So I thought, okay, how do I solve their pain point? By saying you. It's you and rather than me. And I sort of try and adopt that. I mean, I do not follow that rule all the time. But yeah, I would say that seems to have worked pretty well. By saying it's you and do you want to do something with me because there is a benefit for you.
And interesting people, that's like, oh, that sounds sexy. I better sign up to that.
Really? I was actually surprised because I thought surely you would have interesting people. How would you know I would know interesting people or that I could attract interesting people? That was the thing that surprised me the most, that people were actually responsive to the fact that I said, come here, you will find interesting people.
Yeah. That's great.
I think we're always on the lookout for interesting people. Most people are, right? Because at this particular age, finding interesting people that you can connect with is really difficult.
And life is freaking boring sometimes,
Yeah.
But what would make the two of you say, I trust this person organizing this event, saying you will meet interesting people? What would make you go, I believe that, and therefore I will come?
Do you want an honest answer? Or do you want me to give you a very curated answer?
Oh, but do you have an answer as well? Maybe you want to share your insight after Terng does.
Yeah. So the honest answer is because I'd be desperate to actually find like interesting meetups. Like, no, it's really difficult.
Yeah, me too.
So
especially
in KL, right?
Yeah.
I've been struggling to find like really great networking or like groups to people to meet. Sometimes I'm not even trying to sell anything at that point, right? It's just about meeting people and building and growing your network. Yeah. And it's difficult. And the hunger that you see with people, because every time I do actually go out and meet people at small events and stuff, they're all asking me the same thing because I'm asking them. I'm like, oh, do you know any great places to go to, or like, do you know any networking stuff that happened? They're like, no, do you? And it becomes this weird thing where everyone's just in a circle asking each other, right? And it's a really weird thing because you can tell there are people who are not acting in good faith, right? They're just saying, oh, so I can try and sell you something, I can push an
Yeah.
agenda. But
Yeah.
then I would say the majority of people actually, no, it's really tough after COVID to actually build a network.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go and meet people in the right way. And I'm like, yeah, and like if you know anything, here's my number. Give me a call, right? But it's been tough. So like desperation is a joke, but not really.
Yeah. That's so fascinating though, that when you really think about, there really aren't that many opportunities, and we tend to stick with the same circles as well, which I feel as though isn't something I feel so much, simply because of the nature of the podcast and the fact that I always reach out to people I don't know, so I can say every week I meet one complete stranger and get to really know them. So I suppose it was a really good reminder for me when you told me that actually for everyone, even for myself, actually meeting new people in person is very quite hard.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
for
think
sure.
the fact that you built a reputation where people would trust you at that point. So you have some characteristics. For example, you're a podcast, so you have these popular posts. You have an established LinkedIn network, so you have that reputation where, okay, I can trust her. She's not some scammer. Look, are you tired of struggling with design software?
Or hiring underwhelming designers.
Then it's time to try Yeti.
With Yeti, you can get top-notch design work without actually even lifting a finger.
You just submit your brief and let a team of professional designers work their magic.
You know the best part? It won't break the bank, David. It's really,
I
really
can't believe you said
affordable.
break the bank. Anyway, so if you want to step up your branding game like a boss, like me and Terng, give Yeti a shot.
Yeah, make sure that you go to our website, businessoverdrinks/offers, OFFERS, to see how it works.
Do this .com/offers.
I don't care, man. businessoverdrinks.com/offers.
Trust us, you won't be disappointed.
Thank
we
you
know
for
of.
heaping all the praise on me.
Yeah.
Time to prick the bubble now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, just go on like the list of insults that we wrote. Come on. You go
Yeah,
first.
yeah. We have a list. We spent the past few days working on the list of insults. Actually, just kidding.
Oh, really?
But no. So out of this, you mentioned in your LinkedIn that you have struck a book deal. Can you tell us more how the conversation started? Is it happening, and what is it? What will it be about?
So not so much struck a book deal, but more. So I got this message from the publisher of one of, you definitely would have heard of them. They basically reached out and say, "Hey, we've heard of you. Would you like to get on a call?" And they basically said, "Just go away, think about a concept or a book that you really like to write, and come back to us. If we approve, then just go ahead and write it." So I'm at that stage of basically trying to do the research and figure out exactly what I want. And I love the fact that I have full, essentially, discretion to decide what it is going to be. But I also didn't want it to be writing a book for the sake of writing a book, and no one actually wants it. And there's so many people who would then say, I've got a podcast that's turning into a book by highlighting 10 guests. Some people who highlight their journey in writing, in running something. And I wanted something that actually was of value. So I'm sort of stuck at that stage of, what can I offer that people would actually want to read that's unique and different? And I would also love to write as well. But I would say sorry?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, like, once I've got that, then it's kind of like an open invitation. Just reach out, just say, hey, these are my ideas. Would you say yes to that? And then just proceeding from there.
And did they just hear about you because of your podcast? Is that how they found you?
Apparently I was recommended by people who would say, please check her out. And also some of my posts had gone viral as well. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So it works. LinkedIn works.
Yeah, no, I'm suffering from jealousy, which happens at almost every podcast that we do, because we usually speak to people who are much more accomplished and successful than we are.
No, no, I don't think I'm more accomplished. I think it's like all these things I would have never even dared to dream, and I would have never thought would happen to me. Like, if you asked me a year ago, 2 years ago, no way I would have even imagined I would even be on LinkedIn. But I suppose even for you guys, because you create all these stuff, right? and you realize that, oh, these doors start opening without you even intending it to be, just because you put yourself out there. So you never
Yeah,
know. I mean,
they're
you
mostly
might get.
alcohol based.
I mean, you at least got sponsors for alcohol. I've got zero sponsors. So look at you, you're way ahead of me right now.
Oh, you just need to be shameless. Like we'll do anything. No, I'm joking. We won't do anything, but we have a very low bar. So if anybody wants to
We'll
reach
do
out to
most
us,
things.
yeah, we'll do pretty much anything. I was lying. We'll do anything. No, no. Okay, so I
And,
think we've kind of like we've touched on the LinkedIn bit, which was very interesting to me personally. Like I said, I'm putting more and more focus on LinkedIn for my brand, for myself, for our clients as well. But I kind of want to touch on as well the fact that you mentioned that you have your full time job, and then you've got the podcast, you've got a bunch of other things you want to do as well. How do you kind of balance all of that? Because it. I mean, I don't want to call your podcast a side hustle, because I don't think that's an accurate way of looking at it. Right? It's literally another job.
Yep.
Right?
and
How
you're
do
a
you how do you
lawyer
ba-
too, so that's long
Yeah.
hours, I'm guessing.
I'm very lucky because as an in-house lawyer, I don't have to work to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I don't have to give up my weekends. So in a way, as you said, it is a second job. So I come back and sit down at my desk by 7, half past 7 and 8, and I can basically work to midnight 1, sometimes 2. I really
Damn.
regret it when I do that. You can do that every single day. You've got the whole weekend. That's a lot of hours. That's essentially at least 40 hours, 50, 60. Honestly, it's more than enough for you to do something else on the side. The question is more, how much do you want it? Because if you stop, no one will care and no one will keep you at it as well. So it's just a question of what drives you. If there's enough drive, anything's possible.
I think a lot of people can relate to that situation where they're working, but they hear about podcasting, or they're thinking about another business, but they don't know how to go about doing it. Um, how would, because podcasting is very it's very public, right? How do you go about telling your employer that this is something you're doing, or and is it, did you have to explain yourself? Did you get in trouble? Yeah, how does it all work?
I never tell my employers, but they do know about it for sure. I would say it's because the people who are working in my office, my colleagues, and it's quite a huge conglomerate, our circles and my personal circles, we overlap tremendously. So they were friends before they became colleagues, colleagues became friends. So in that sense, they very much see what I put out there as well, and they kind of know and they share. I first found out that they knew about it because my direct superiors, the directors, would then say, "Oh, Ling Yah has a podcast," and they are just full credit to them. They are so lovely and really, really encouraging. Recently, we ran this leadership course. This CEO of one of our big companies had a VC in the car, and he was sending us back, and he basically went, "Do you know Ling Yah has a podcast?" And it's fantastic. And it's little things, little shout outs like that. I didn't even know, firstly, the CEO knew I had a podcast and that he even listened and was following it. The fact that he would even share with other people, I feel it's more a testimony of the kind of people that are working in my company as well, who are just very, very, very supportive. And I suppose glad to see that I'm doing something with my life outside of just work. And also the thing that I do with podcasts has nothing to do with the company as well. So in that sense, there really is zero conflict of interest.
Yep.
No, that's good. That's interesting, because I think the fact that you're working in a company seems to be extremely understanding is good. I know of people who get into trouble, for example, if they have like a decent social media presence, like it's highly regulated by their company's HR and stuff like that. Things they can post, things they can't post. It becomes a thing. So the fact that your company is really understanding is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to know though, because I think I asked this for quite a lot of people, clients, people I meet and everything. Like, what are you trying to achieve with all of this? Like, what's your, maybe not your end goal, but like what is your outcome? What's your idea of success? Or like, is this something you just want to do forever?
Definitely something I want to do forever. I started with a clear goal in mind. I mean, ideally, I could easily just say be like the Joe Rogan of Asia, for instance, or just of the world. I feel as though, and this is something I've learned from many guests, you don't have to have a big overarching this 10-year goal, 20-year goal. Just just put your very best foot forward, just plan and see where things take you. I mean, I would love for this to become a platform where people come, meet interesting people, learn about possibilities out there. I feel very, very strongly about the fact that we are in a very different era from previous generations where you really don't and are not stuck to one job. Or if you are, it doesn't matter. You can do something on the side. But for me, at least personally, I found that because I didn't hear stories, I didn't know other people who were doing things on the side, it didn't even cross my mind. And even if it crossed my mind, I had no idea how to even start. So the idea is to just say, these are all the people who end up doing what they're doing. They're really good at it. They really love it, but they had no idea they would end up there if not for all these different little experiments they did along the way. And there are many stories like that, but from the US and very much less so from Asia. I'm from Asia, it's a lot more relatable. So why not tap into that and showcase people who have done tremendously well, but in Asia, so it's a lot more relatable, but also put them on the same platform as, say, the co-founder of Evernote, whom everyone knows, and say, hey, he's fantastic, he's globally known, but so is all these Asian figures as well.
Well, I'm really curious because I have a friend who's thinking about starting a podcast now, and she's a mum, right? If you could give some guidance to people on stage one of creating a podcast, maybe if you can just reflect on your episode number one. How did it all pan out? How did you get your first guest?
It's not changed so much from day one as it has from now. I just ask people. Most of the people I do not know at all. So when I first started, and it amazes me as well, I got 15 yeses. I didn't even have a website. I didn't have a name. I had no episodes, nothing, zilch. But I just went out and just say, hey, this is me. And I use a Gmail account. I still use it. This is what I want to do. These are the questions I would like to ask. And would you say yes? And most people do say yes, surprisingly. And from there, it's sort of like a flywheel that you just start and you just build more social credit over time. But it's just getting started and realizing that, so what if you have nothing behind your name? Just send an email. It's not up to you to decide whether it moves forward or not. It's up to them. And if they say yes, that means they decide that you're worth their time. So why not just honor and put your best foot forward?
It was like Terng and I, and we didn't have any podcast equipment when we first started. We were just speaking into our computers. We didn't have I don't think we had earphones, did we?
That's fine.
We
No,
just
no, I
started a
think
podcast. It was
It's
horrible.
fine.
yeah,
But
it
people
was
came.
it was terrible. It was terrible actually.
Yeah.
We still have our first episode up and it's terrible. So it's worse.
I have
No, we have the
worst
second
quality.
episode up. We don't have number one. Number one will get us cancelled. But
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
two is up.
we said some stuff.
I dare not even listen to my earlier episodes. I just cringe.
I mean, yeah, we know we don't listen to it either. But actually, kind of tying to that, like, I think Dave kind of has that mentality as well. Because when we first started, he actually sent a cold email to Marie Kondo's team and said, "Would you like to come on our podcast? Like, we're not a big podcast, but we love to have you on and stuff." They never responded, but I thought it was really cool that he just tried
Well,
to.
we've had
No.
other guests who said yes, so
Yeah.
great
Yeah,
guests.
no,
too.
we have guests.
Yeah.
We have guests that say yes.
Who
Mostly
are-
people that we know.
Who are the most surprising yeses you've had so far?
Oh, that's a good one. You, that would be one.
Really? Why?
Oh, we just
I'll let-
ran every time we get a yes, we're just surprised. To be very
There are a
honest.
few, and the bigger the names are, high, the more processes behind. We got one who said yes at first, but then there was a lot of we had to talk to is some person, and then we had to deal with them directly, and then in the end he cancelled through that person. It was a strange one, but we have had a
Yeah.
lot of good guests. Our last one, Yolanda Lee, her podcast isn't up yet. We're pretty surprised that she said yes.
Oh yeah, so yeah, she founded a company called Uncommon. They nurture the next generation of female leaders in Asia. So it's like this massive networking group and stuff like that.
I think I've
Across.
seen the profile before. Yeah.
Yeah, she's quite prominent around there. Ex Uber, ex Deliveroo, I think, and a few other stuff.
Oh yeah, Deliveroo. Amazing. Sounds like an
Yeah, so-
exciting episode.
I don't know
But-
about that. No, I'm joking. It was a really good episode.
So if we're looking at your success today, right? So you've ranked number 2 in Malaysia for the topic of business and careers, number 2 in Singapore for business and careers, and number 3 in Indonesia for careers. And then you've grown to 33,000 downloads. Oh, and you're now in over 35 countries with over 13,000 followers. I mean, that's a pretty big feat for, I think your podcast is 2 years and 7 months, right?
They're out. Yep.
Do you have any tips on how what worked really well for you and what didn't?
So I should probably qualify first before answering a question in terms of success. I feel as though the numbers seem like successful. It doesn't feel like success at all. Firstly, secondly, these numbers, you have to really look behind the numbers. And I would say, firstly, like the rankings, number two, I'm sure you would know as well. Those rankings change every single week. You can be number two this week, and then you can be 10, then you can be 50. It doesn't really matter.
All right,
It's
Terng,
more
let's
about
say
just
we were
saying,
number one for 10 minutes.
yeah, I mean, so what? You were number one. That's the whole thing as well. Even with books as well, you're best selling. What does that mean? I only sold like 1,000 because other books only sold 100. What does that actually mean? So it's easy to sort of be awed by the numbers. But when you really dig it behind it, you realize that actually it's not so big and it's not so impossible for anyone to achieve that. So long as you put in the work. So how did I get the numbers then as opposed to just a success? It's really just hard work and it's just showing up, which is no different from any other content creators' advice. Just keep on doing it. When you don't feel like it, so what? Just do it. Over time, you realize that, oh, I've already reached over 100 episodes. I don't know how that happened. And somewhere along the way, all these little things happened, like appearing on the latest show, James Corden, that you mentioned earlier. Didn't expect it, couldn't have planned it. There's no way, even if I knew someone, that I could have said, I would definitely get on that show. But then I did. And I would have never have that had that opportunity if I just didn't constantly create and constantly just pitch myself out there.
So this kind of leads in perfectly what I want to ask you, right? Like, could you tell us a little bit more about how that happened? How you about the Late Late Show with James Corden? Like, what exactly happened? Give us some context.
Sure. So this was around just before the summer break for the show, and I would say 2021. And for some reason, YouTube decided I needed to see the snippets of the monos from the Late Show with James Corden. And mind you, this was me at the time. I didn't even know there was a show. I had heard about things like couple karaoke. I knew about the Crosswalk the musical. I thought they were just YouTube videos. I didn't know there was an actual show behind it. And then I saw these clips, stuck at home, started watching, thought, this is really funny because there's this guy called Nick Bernstein, and he is the big boss. He's senior VP of late night programming West Coast. He's James Corden's boss. I know who James Corden is. And I read the comments on YouTube as I always do, and it sounded like he had just come on the show. And there were so many inside jokes. People were saying he's so funny, and he was funny. And there's this high chair. And I thought, what is this high chair? Why is everyone talking about it all the time? So me being me, I needed to know what the inside joke was. So I just started going back and finding the mono from the very start. And I realized that the high chair was really because Nick was stuck in quarantine before he came back on the show. And James publicly said, wouldn't it be funny if we put our boss in a high chair for the entire week? Every single week, we're going to raise the level of the high chair, which they did. The final week, his head was basically hitting the roof of the studio because they thought it was funny and they just did it. And they just basically put him through all these different things. He was this big boss, willing to have people take the mickey out of him in public. And I thought at the back of my mind, this is a really interesting person. Maybe I could interview him, but I just left it at that. But I kept on watching the monos because it was only like 5 minutes, 10 minutes for four times a week, is nothing much. And then there was one particular episode because Nick is also very much in the whole, oh my gosh, everyone's listening and watching me and my LinkedIn's exploding. And James asked, well, what's happened over the weekend? And Nick said, I remember, I've got this interview with this German entertainment blog. I was invited to invest in real estate in Miami. And he finally said the line, I'm just going to say yes to everything. And that's when I really perked up. And it was 9 p.m. And I thought, he's going to say yes to everything? So by then, I already had links with him on LinkedIn. I knew his email. I reached out and I just went straight into the, since you say you're going to say yes to everything, would you say yes to coming to me on my podcast? And I went to bed, woke up the next morning. He already said yes. Within less than a week, we had an interview. And he was really, really lovely. He gave me 3 hours of his time.
3 hours, damn. How did he get his email? Was he
It
just
was
on
on
LinkedIn?
It was on LinkedIn.
How good is the internet now, right? You can just tweet people so you can just tweet celebrities. You can email if you can find their email, or you just LinkedIn
really
people.
I mean, honestly, even in Google as well, there are so many websites where you can find the emails of CEOs very easily.
Yeah, that's what I use all the time.
Yeah.
But I just send them like spam. Hey, want to buy some want to buy some want to buy some crypto? No, no, I don't. People are just going to think that we have a crypto company, Dave. We
I think should
don't.
we start? Why don't you do a crypto pump and dump?
Oh, just like FTX.
NFT.
Yep, NFT it up. Um,
Who's
yeah, you.
who's your most memorable guest though, Ling Yah, on in your 2 year and 7 month
Oh my gosh,
podcast
it's
career?
so hard to answer that because everyone is special, which I realize is a cop out answer. I would probably say it's the 100th episode. And that's because I did it. It was my first ever in person interview. And it was actually an interview on me because I had one of my very good friends who was a guest in episode 2 to come on and interview me. And I would say it's basically episode 2 where she was on and there's episode 100. And it's really because, as I said earlier, majority of my guests are all strangers. So it's very much that kind of interviewing a stranger, even though I've done the research on Zoom. And there is that kind of rapport that you don't get when you do it in person with someone that you know really, really well. It's just really fun. It's like any other conversation, a catch up conversation, only it's recorded. And I just really like that because I thought it's one thing to have a catch up, another thing to sit there and be very structured in the kind of questions that you ask. And even though you know each other really well, there you also learn new things as well that you don't even realize happens, and it happens live as well, and there's just that camaraderie that apparently lots of people can hear. So I would say that's really special just because of that personal element. In terms of guest itself, I would say it's probably say the former retired four-star general that I had. He's one of the oldest I've ever had. He was a person who established Malaysia's Green Berets or the Commandos. And for him, it's just so unique because I would have never dreamt I could interview a four-star general ever. And he was really lovely. At the start, before the interview, he kind of spoke to his lieutenant and he said, why am I talking to this young girl anyway? But he was really nice and he gave me time. And it was just such a unique way of him seeing the world. He was utterly fearless. I mean, there was one particular story of many stories he shared where he said, I was in charge of basically coming up with the parachutes for my men. And in order to do that, I need to use the parachutes first. So the first time he used it, he jumped, it went sideways, and he plunged, I think, 6 feet into the buffalo pool, and he almost died, but his colleagues came and pulled him up. And he said, I shook myself up, rinsed myself down, and went straight back up. And I doubled the height in which I jumped from. Second time he jumped down again, the parachute malfunctioned. He almost got barbecued, but thankfully he didn't. And for me, it was so amazing that this was how he tackled fear, which is by saying, I'm not going to let this fear hold me because I felt I'm just going to do straight away again so that I don't let it hold me back. So it's unique stories like that that just amazes me.
Man, sounds like an inspiring dude.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll link to your podcast in the show notes. Look up. So this is my why podcast, everyone. That's Ling Yah's podcast, and we'll have a link to how to listen to it if you forget.
Yeah, and to all the episodes that you mentioned during this, I think we'll link to all of those 100th episode with the general and such.
Amazing.
And the live, because I saw that on YouTube. So that was that your first YouTube live? Like not live, but was it live?
It's the only live one, I would have to say. I
Yeah.
plan to do most of my local ones in person in the studio, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. And also because it's not my studio, so it's just trying to plan around. It's a lot more logistics when you have to say, hey, actually, you have to drive here and actually do the recording and then go away. We've got to edit it.
That's the next stage for Terng and I. But then it just means one of us has to fly to each other's countries. But that's actually in the works for us. So stay tuned, anyone who's listening or watching.
Well, that's news to me. What? No, I'm joking.
Oh man, I was talking to someone else.
Yeah,
who was
I
I
don't
talking?
think that was me, man.
Oh man, is that Dad?
So you're hearing stuff for the first time, Ling. Yeah, this is
amazing.
You're hearing it together. No, I'm joking. We actually, Dave and I actually spoke about this, and this is in the works.
Yeah,
it's gonna take some time. I like to mess with him a bit. It's really fun. He always looks shocked, like a puppy that just you caught them doing something, just like.
And then I chuck a tantrum, then eventually apologizes to me. I'm sorry, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, your experience in hiking at the Mount Everest Base Camp. I've always wanted to do that. Yeah, can you tell us more about how it all happened?
How it all happened was because I did my very first hike in my life at this place called Mount Kinabalu, which is one of the highest mountains in Malaysia. And I did it because a friend basically said, "Hey, I'm doing a hike with a bunch of friends. Do you want to join?" And that was the first time I thought about it. And I realized that, yeah, it's a bucket list. So just say yes. I didn't know
Sounds really easy.
anything. Yes, that's really easy, right? I mean, I did not plan, did not, train specifically, and to show just how little I knew about hiking when I started. And there were lots of buff, really fit guys, and they just zoomed ahead the moment we started. And I tried to keep up, and I died really quickly. And I thought, oh, I cannot keep up with them, so I'm just gonna go at my own pace. I literally just did that. I didn't care, I just took my time. And before I knew it, I was bypassing all these guys because they would stop, they would take breaks, they would eat lunch, and I just went, I'm not going to take any step whatsoever. I'm just going to take one step at a time. I'll eat along the way. And I just really enjoyed myself. It was a literal, I feel a second wind coming, a third wind coming. And I remember there was a distinct point where I was above the clouds and I looked around and it was like a perfect London summer weather almost. And I thought, this is amazing. I love it. I'm just going to do Everest Base Camp. And at the time I was, I think, 27. And I knew me and I knew that if I don't set a deadline for myself, then I'm not going to do it. So I just went, before I turn 30, I'm just going to do Everest Base Camp. And sure enough, when I was
Shit.
29, I realized that, oh, I'm going to turn 30 next year and I haven't done anything. So I reached out to one of the guys who was with me for Mount Kinabalu and he said, coincidentally, we are planning a trip to EBC in March. And I turned 30 in April. So it felt like I just had to say yes. And I said yes. And that was how it happened.
How long is so I'm just looking at Mount Kinabalu, so that's 8 point so it could be 5.4 kilometers for Mount Kinabalu. Was it 8
I mean, it's
kilometers?
basically you hike all the way up to Laban Rata. It shouldn't take you more than half a day. And then you basically just sleep overnight. You wake up really, really early because you want to hit the peak at sunrise and just come straight down after that.
It's in Malaysia. And how far is the Mount Everest? What's the distance of the hike in the Mount Everest base camp?
Around 70 km, I would say.
Oof.
It sounds long, but it actually really, really isn't. Like the physical part isn't an issue at all. It's just a really long walk. And the best part about hiking is that you're not rushing anywhere. The whole point of and how you succeed in hiking is to take your time. If you want to slow down, slow down. It's okay. That's the way you're supposed to do it anyway.
Okay, it's 130 kilometers for anyone else. I just googled it. 130 kilometers.
Oh yeah.
No,
2
you're just
days.
flexing, Ling Yah. You're just flexing.
Yeah.
But
I
actually,
was
it's all right
like,
because people do 200
don't-
kilometer marathons, right?
do they?
No, I haven't done
I
that.
don't,
So they are
I
better.
know, but I think you're talking about an ultra marathon, which is about 100 kilometers.
Yeah, there's a huge one in America, right?
Yeah,
Dave
ultra
Goggins
marathons
did.
are, yeah. I think so. Dave, what you're finding out is Dave doesn't know a lot about, well, facts and stuff, so he just makes up a lot of things during the podcast,
But it
which we
doesn't
have to
matter.
clarify. We had to
Yeah,
clarify everything during the show notes.
one of you should just speak all the time so that Dave has time to just Google really quickly and sound really, really
Yeah,
smart.
exactly, right? 130
Yeah.
kilometers. Would you ever climb Mount Everest?
No, definitely not climate for sure.
Well, just because of the life,
Why?
the risks
Yeah,
of losing
because
your life.
for sure. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense because the thing about the mountains is it doesn't matter how fit you are. If you're unlucky, you're just unlucky and gonna die. And for me, I'm not so desperate that I want to hit the highest peak in the world just to flex that kind of achievement. It doesn't do anything for me. I'd rather do all the other things that the world has to offer because I could lose my life because there was a freak weather, full stop. And no one can do anything about it. And I think that's just crazy.
But the base camp is just a pretty safe walk, just a very long one.
Yeah, it's just a
Okay.
very, very long one. And people do die. And the reason they die is because they don't, sounds very strange, but they don't respect the mountains in the sense that, for instance, I said you must walk really slowly. Some people run. They think that because they're so fit, they're ultra marathoners, therefore the mountain's nothing. No, the mountain will humble you. You need to take your time because if you can't acclimatize, then AMS will kill you. So it's little things like that which actually can be managed. Some people do really well in the mountains. I don't do really well. So just being cautious, following the rules, follow your guide because they are the the experience once, and you should be fine.
Hmm.
Yeah, Dave, you should definitely climb Mount Everest.
Come on, Terng, let's
Not
do it.
base camp, Mount Everest.
Respect.
That's what we're gonna do. So I kind of want to take a step back and go to your podcast again, because I think that's a really interesting aspect, because I think because both of us have been doing this podcast now for roughly 2 years and a bit. What I've come to realize is the fact that beyond creating content, right, it's also kind of a learning experience for everyone else. So like I can safely say throughout all the podcasts that we've done, I always learn something, even if it's like really random. I learned something, but for the most part, I've actually think that it's made me a better person in certain aspects.
Has it?
Not emotionally or if character perspective, but just just knowledge.
Yeah,
uh,
not empathy, not empathy or
definitely not
human
empathy.
spirit. No.
uh, Not kindness. um but Ling Yah, could you tell us maybe some of like the has it impacted you that way, and like have you had any like major like or big or impactful lessons that you've kind of got from your 2 years and 7 months of doing podcasts?
I would say the biggest one would be realizing that even the most successful people are just people, and they're really approachable and really nice. I would say, and I can give examples, I always give them as well. There was this guest, Dr. Finian Tam, and he's a very, very successful Singaporean VC. And when I spoke to him, there was a pre interview, and he came in and he basically asked me the question, how many downloads do you have? And I thought, oh no, I just started. My download rates are really low. Is he going to be one of those, your rates are so low, I'm going to cancel? So I kind of slightly jacked up my numbers. So I said around like 120. And he just went, okay, sure. We can do the interview tomorrow. And the next day, we did the interview for 3 hours until almost 1 a.m. And at the end, we had this little talk. And he basically said, I asked you the question, how many downloads do you have? Because if you had given me a really high number, like 10,000, I would have just given you 1 hour of my time. Because you had a really low download rate, I decided to give you all of my time because I always want to give back. And for me, my biggest lesson is realizing that, well, I put this guy on a really high pedestal because he's really achieved so much. But actually, these kind of people out there, some of them really want to give back. And they could never give back if you don't even ask and approach them in the first place. And it was the same thing with Guy Kawasaki as well, because I stalked him for weeks. And this was at the height of the Clubhouse craze. And I noticed he was doing AMA rooms. So I jumped to every AMA room. And I noticed that almost every room, he would always drop his email. And there were around 300 people every time. I look at his books, his email was there. There's no way you can't find his email. So in my interview with him, I asked, why on earth would you drop your email everywhere? And he said, you think me, I would get lots of emails all the time, but actually people self-select. I drop my emails in these AMA rooms, 300 plus people. At most time I get 1 or 3 emails. So I do reply to every single one because people tend to think I get a lot more emails than I think. So for me, it's just realizing that all these people, you just got to try because they might want to help you. You just don't even ask. So therefore, they're never going to help you.
I'm going to email Guy Kawasaki right now.
Yeah.
Just would you like to buy crypto?
NFT, good deal.
Instant
Oh,
spend.
my God.
You're like, I'm a prince from Nigeria. I think I would like to gift you 10,000 gold pieces. Okay, but that's actually a really good lesson, and yes, inspiring lesson, and I think that's good for anyone who's starting off, right?
I agree.
Especially with the internet. I mean, even back then, before the internet, one famous story of Steve Jobs is when he was starting a career, he called, I think he was the founder of HP, and asked for a job, and the guy just gave him a job. So people are more accessible than you think. I mean,
Yes.
there will be no's, but you just keep trying, right?
Yep. Exactly. And that yes could change your life. You only need one.
All right, who should we reach out to? Yay.
Who are your biggest guess?
Oh, Kanye. Oh, do you think we could get Kanye? Oh, that would be
What do
great.
you want? I'm going to keep quiet.
Well, yeah. Dave has so many questions for Kanye. We should get the people who created OpenAI, the guys
Yeah.
That would
they
be
create
great.
all the
That's
That would
fantastic.
be
AI tools. Yeah,
amazing.
that'd be terrifying. We've been playing around with the AI tools.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Where we
That whole
actually like
conversation.
we're really worried about what's
Oh,
going on,
I
and
s-
yeah, I'm
we
stocking up
created.
on food and stuff.
Look, we were creating whole articles that normally people, content writers, would charge hundreds of dollars for,
Yeah.
thousands sometimes. Yeah.
And it was
Bit
accurate. It was good.
written perfectly. I mean, it wouldn't go into as much depth as anyone. Maybe I was asking the wrong questions, but it wouldn't go into as much depth as a human writer may. But um,
I was
Good
thinking
thought.
about Dave's question. Am I cute? Question mark.
rate me 10 out of 10. 10 out of
Thing is,
10. No, but
I saw this
yeah.
editor recently. He gave a really interesting thought about how this AI is going to transform the way education's run and the way
Mm.
that exams are going to run as well. Because you're never going to have students give an assignment to students and say, "Hey, go back and write this essay," because they're just going to ask AI to just write it for them, and you would
Exactly.
never
Yeah,
know.
exactly. I still strongly believe that there's gonna what might be really interesting is there might be a renaissance when it comes to quality of content,
Hmm.
because I think AI is gonna fill the gap with good but average content,
Yeah.
and then really the high quality is gonna kind of like rise to the top, right? The cream's gonna rise to the
Yep.
top, and then you're just gonna charge so much money, just gonna like 2 million. No, I'm joking.
No,
Yeah,
he's not
we
joking.
won't charge.
It's in the works for his company already. Um, but quick side note. I think once AI starts taking jobs, hopefully, maybe it's a way for us to finally just stop working crappy jobs. Content writing isn't a crappy job, but writing, just SEO content, all that stuff. It's
No.
I think it's outdated. I feel like the kind of work that we do would be very different. I mean, for instance, I think that there is an art to knowing what to tell the AI to write. I think that's really difficult. You know, that time when you were trying to create all these different art pieces from all these different word prompts. I thought it was really hard to figure out what precise
what to
word to
say.
use. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a whole niche in itself.
Yeah, and it definitely won't be Dave. Am I cute? Like,
It
rate
could
me
be
out of
me, man.
10.
People might want to know that. Is Dave cute?
No, no, not really.
Yeah,
No one
they
wants to
will.
know.
They
They've
do.
seen
They
they've seen
do.
your pictures. They've seen your pictures. Um, no. Okay, I'm gonna stop insulting Dave, because that's usually what the podcast devolves at some point into just me insulting Dave,
Dave,
and
you
then
need to
Dave
give it back.
sounding.
You need to give it back as good as you're getting.
Well, no, he's a
No.
massive liar. He keeps on telling people like I'm mean, I'm cruel. His people he knows have actually reached out to me and said, "Why are you bullying Dave?" They
No,
don't know the
I
recording's
get
off.
tongue back by just generally being a happier person than he is.
Yeah.
So anyway, about your so this is my podcast. Is the nickname Stymie? Is that
Yep.
what you like to call it?
Yeah.
Stymie. Stymie
Or
physical meetups.
sorry, Steve.
What you mentioned earlier, just to DM you to join them. Can you tell us more about what they are, who they're for?
So it's for anyone who happens to be in KL. Hopefully, it's other countries as well. If you just want to hang out, just want to meet interesting new people, that's the place to be. I tend to try and do different activities there. So the first
Yep.
time I set the entrance fee is to bring your favorite little bag of cookies. And so there were around 30 people who came, basically got some tables, put them together, got plates, and all the cookies were placed on all the plates. And basically I just went, try all the cookies here and vote on the best cookies. And the person with the best cookies got like 100 ringgit Starbucks gift card. So that was the game for the
Oh,
first
man.
one. When's this episode coming out? I can review the game for this second episode.
It may be 4 weeks from now, around
Okay,
that time.
and I can review it. So the game for the second one, there's a theme. It's everyone's supposed to wear green of some sort. It's Shrek. Sorry, not Shrek. It's the Grinch. So the Grinch stole Christmas. And so the idea is basically, firstly, there's a networking session where I've asked them to fill in a Google form, tell me who you are, what your interests are, and then try and match them. So before you come, I would then give you an email, say, these are the 5 people thereabouts that you should definitely connect with. And these are also their LinkedIn profiles as well, because of these interests that are very similar to you. So in that way, rather than going and realizing there are 30 strangers, how on earth do I remember who they are? At least I have these 5 I must meet. So that's one part. The second part I'm really excited about. It's the idea that I basically got saran wrap, which is the kind of plastic you use to cover all your food.
Mhm.
And I buy
Mm.
lots of little gifts, and there's a big gift in the middle as well. And so I kind of wrap it almost like a ball, and I wrap it.
Yeah.
So like one sweet wrap, and then all kinds of things. And so the idea is there are two players at any one time. You stand in a circle. I'm player one, say Dave, you're player two. So player one, the moment the game starts, I start unwrapping, and all these little gifts drop out. So the gifts that drop out as I'm unwrapping, I keep. Whereas you, Dave, you're a player two. You get two dices. You roll. If you get double, say 1-1 or 2-2, that means my round has ended, your start. So you need to roll as fast as possible so that I get as little sweets as possible. So that's kind of like that. But along the way, you've got all these little instructions. Say, hey, once you open this, you have to forfeit all of your sweets. Or say, hey, once you unwrap it, you've got an additional 10 seconds to unwrap everything. Or, you have to unwrap only with one hand, all these different things. So you never know. But the idea is hopefully you can go all the way around. People all get to take something. And there's also a little bit competition as well.
You had me at cookies and sweets.
I know. I mean, you just gotta give, food, keep people happy.
But seriously though, I've been attending a lot. I've been trying to get into the film industry quite a bit. So one thing I've been advised is like the fortune favors the brave. Whoever's there more often usually gets a better deal. So I think I've been hearing from more and more people lately the importance of networking, of knowing the right people, and
Yeah.
reflecting upon a lot of the stuff that's a lot of the cash generating opportunities I've had in my life have been because of the people I know. Rarely because of cold approached anyone.
Because you just never know who you meet up, right? I mean, sometimes you get these random calls and they would say, hey, can we just have a chat? But their profiles are really interesting. And it's okay if we don't end up doing anything. Maybe they know someone they can refer to in the future. But because we had that chat, they know what I'm looking out for. And they just then say, hey, why don't I just connect you two? It's happened. You just never know.
We ask all our guests this because I think it's really interesting, and Dave and I are massive fans of actually like books and literature in general, right? So
Sure.
Dave's actually an author, so he writes stuff, mostly
Amazing.
really sad emo stuff, but he writes stuff a lot.
I need to
Uh,
learn from you.
oh, don't! It's like just
Don't.
really sad stuff. But can you name so could you name like top three books that have kind of influenced your life, or like things that you take, like you find the most impactful?
Yeah, so I would say, full disclaimer, I don't actually read books anymore. I listen to lots of podcasts and I read lots of articles and I do deep dives online rather than books itself. It's been a while. But I would say one book I really enjoyed was The Third Door. One of my former guests, Eric Toda, told me about him. And Third Door, he told me about him and I read the book because it's very interesting. This guy is very young, he's an American, and he just basically did a podcast and he literally chased people down car parks and all these different ways. Basically, he said the way to reach and do what I did is going through the third door. You would normally think you have to go through the front entrance, but for him, he said it's all about creating your own opportunity, creating that third door, and you never know what opportunities will come out of that. So his entire story is just basically showing how he's done it, and he's done a really good job of it. So that's one thing that I think is really interesting, just realizing that there are lots of people. I always think, for instance, that oh, I'm sort of pushing the boundaries and I'm reaching people that most people are not reaching. But then I read people like him, Alex Bunyan, and I realized that, oh, actually, I haven't gone to that extent yet. There's always so much more that I can push and try and do, which I haven't done. So I think that's one that's really interesting. I really like Sahil Lavinja of Gumroad, and he wrote a book, The Minimalist Entrepreneur. I really like that, and it's the whole idea of the fact that you don't need so much to just start. You just gotta start. Build with as little as possible. Just ship early, sell the first 100 customers, be you. It's all these simple things that I feel everyone can apply to, and I try to do. And it's just sort of like a grounded way of approaching everything, and you don't have to burn bright and fast and big as it's a very why not just do a minimalist approach. I would say these two books are the most important for me, and right now I'm just reading building a brand story because I need to start thinking about brands in a very very intentional manner.
Oh, the brand story. Yeah, I've heard of brand story. He has a podcast too, right? And a blog.
Yeah, he's got so much content out there. It's just a lot.
Just on that, as we close off, are there top three lessons you've learned, or major lessons you've learned in your career that you think that you want to pass on to our listeners and our viewers?
It's pretty similar to what we've spoken about. Firstly, just start. Secondly, so this is the sort of process I've come up with, which I've garnered from all my guests, and maybe that's the best way to answer. I've realized the process for most people is this. I tend to ask them the question, have you found your why? And a lot of people would say, no, it doesn't matter, or it's more about, about what's that word, ikigai. And I realized that it didn't matter that they didn't know what their ultimate overarching purpose in life is. Why am I here on this earth? Doesn't matter. But they're all successful in their own way. And the reason why they're successful is because, firstly, they had curiosity. They used that curiosity. They really became obsessive about it. Because they were obsessive, they put in the time. Then serendipity happened. All these different doors happened. They became an expert, and they are who they are today. So it's really these very simple steps that anyone can apply to their lives. Because you are definitely curious about something. If you're not curious, that means you're not trying. You're not putting yourself out there. So just put yourself out there. Just pick up a book. Just talk to someone. If it sparks your interest, just go down that rabbit hole. You just never know what you'll lead up to. So I would say starting with those 3 parts is very simple, but definitely something I would encourage everyone to do.
It's curious. Stay curious. What's that saying?
Obsessive.
Stay curious. Yeah. What was it? Sorry.
What?
Sorry, stay curious and then obsessive and serendipity. I think there's a saying, right? I can't quite remember right now.
I've never
stay
heard that
bold.
saying in my
I
life.
think it was a Steve Jobs saying something. He had something about being curious.
I was gonna make a horrible joke about Steve Jobs being mean to people, and I'm just gonna keep quiet.
Yeah, I think he was mean to people.
So, Ling Yah, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think we're coming to the end because we know that it's, it's quite late for Dave. It's quite late for you, and I want to give you some time to kind of like focus on your podcast and rest. But is there anything that you kind of want to tell people about This Is My Why, or how maybe you can just share again how people can find you?
So people can find me on all the different platforms. There's YouTube, there is LinkedIn, there is Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. There's a website as well, www.sothismywhy.com. Just look on any of these platforms. I'm sure you would drop the links in the show notes as well. So that's really easy. And my email's easy to find as well. So there you go.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Ling. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming here. And I think we've learned a lot, especially about LinkedIn, which I think we are on LinkedIn for our podcast, but there's a lot we can improve, definitely, and networking and just about podcasting in general. And climbing Mount Everest, I think Terng's going to book us some tickets. We'll head out.
It's on my to-do list.
Do a
So give me a
podcast.
couple.
Do a podcast from high up in one of those tea houses. And you can say,
Do you
hey,
think we
I'm
could-
recording.
No, we should actually do that. So I think one of the ideas that I really liked would be actually to have a podcast that we would do in the most random places. So it won't be live because I don't think we'll have connection, but just record everything like most random places, like Dave's house, which is like the most random
Hey,
place
this is
in
Terng, this is
Brisbane.
David. We are in Johor Bahru right now, just in the bus. There you go.
That'll be awesome.
Why not? I think
That'll be
people
awesome.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again, once again, Ling Yah, and for everyone else who's any of our audience right now, don't forget to follow us. Business Over Drinks, we're everywhere. Just search us and follow. So This Is My Why.